Hello and welcome to the SAE Tomorrow Today podcast. I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's podcast, we're absolutely honored to have Rob Grant, Vice President of Global Government Affairs at Cruise, on the podcast. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks, Grayson. Great to be here. Great to see you, old friend. I'm looking forward to today.
It's great to see you as well. And I want to go back to our childhood, because growing up, you and I have something in common that not a lot of people know. You wanted to play center field for the New York Yankees. I tried to hit the baseball like Don Mattingly. So I want to know now, to the careers that we're currently in, when can we get together and go to Yankee Stadium in a cruise vehicle?
Oh, well, that's great. I mean, you bring back so many good memories when you talk about the Yankees. I just remember listening to Scooter Rizzuto and Bill White and all the calls. Holy cow, just fantastic. Yeah, I mean, right now, the thing that I'm appreciating, again, is to look forward to when we can get back to seeing baseball live, right? First and foremost. And that'll be exciting when that day comes. But it's hard to put an exact date on New York, but I know here what Cruise is doing in San Francisco is very soon we'll be able to go down and take a ride to Oracle Park, maybe see Yaz's grandson, Mike Yastrzemski, play. And I look forward to having you out here and taking that ride to the ballpark with you.
Oh, that I can't wait. So I want to stay on the Yankee theme. So growing up, and you wanted to play center field, was it more in the Mantle DiMaggio mix, or was it kind of more in the Bernie Williams style of play?
Oh, it was definitely Bernie Williams. He was just my favorite player. Before that, I loved Roberto Kelly, who he replaced. We just playing center field, walking into that stadium as a kid, smelling the grass and seeing the sights. It was just, for me, one of the best things growing up. And I still, to this day, 45 years old, I still think I can get out there and play. But, I think there's a lot of history on these old legs and tired arm that suggests that that's never going to happen.
Hey, listen, we can go out there like my dad would play in the softball leagues and reminisce about, hey, remember when you could actually throw it all the way from the outfield to home plate?
Yeah, I go out there and throw the ball at my kids all the time. I got 4 boys, as you know, and they're very active. And they make fun of me for my velocity. They're like, hey, I'm not even sure you could hit 35 miles an hour if you're pitching the ball.
Well, we have fun. And so I'm excited when I come to see you in San Francisco post-pandemic, and there's fans back in the stadium, and you're dealing with the atmosphere of Oracle Park. What will that experience be like? Will we leave from the Cruise office? Will you meet me at my hotel? Or what, can you kind of how will that whole experience work for us to get there?
Yeah, no, I think the great thing at Cruise is we're really looking to create an entirely new experience in transportation, right? And that goes beyond just what the actual ride will look like. It goes to how are we fundamentally going to look at moving people and moving goods around in a much different way, right? We look at the status quo right now, and it's got a lot of limitations. It's too polluting, too unsafe, doesn't serve enough people. And at Cruise, this is what we're trying to change. So, for us, your experience will be like, we could pick you up anywhere. We can move you around in a 100% all-electric vehicle that's not going to put extra pollutants out there. And we're going to get you to where you need to go safely, and we'll take you back anywhere. So if you want to be in one of the outer lying parts of the city, closer to the ocean, say out in Outer Sunset or somewhere else, we plan to service all of it. And so your experience will be safe. It'll be clean. It'll be all green. And it's one that I think you'll really enjoy the first time, but the hope is you'll use it every time. And it just becomes integrated as part of the way you get around San Francisco whenever you're here. And for us, we want to make that as iconic of a San Francisco experience or any city we're in as, say, taking the cable car.
That's a great analogy with the cable car. And I remember I grew up in Connecticut, and I like, my wife calls them horrible movies, but I think they're great movies. And I watched the movie The Rock with Nick Cage and Sean Connery, and they went to the Fairmont. I'm like, okay, I got to go see this place, and I want to go on a trolley car. It's like this iconic thing. And then you saw the Rice-A-Roni commercials. It's a San Francisco treat where the trolley car was embedded into, so somebody growing up on the East Coast, when you went to San Francisco, you had to go on the trolley car. It didn't matter what you did. You had to go there and get your photo taken. Yep. And so when you look to the future, Do you imagine that the cruise and the origin being a part of that San Francisco story that's ingrained and embedded with the city? So when tourists come from the East Coast or other parts of the country that might not be exposed to technology, they have to get that photo?
Absolutely. Not only do they have to get the photo, they have to take the ride, and then they go back home and say, why don't we have this here? Right? What is it about what we're doing in XYZ city that we can't mimic what's going on in San Francisco, right? And that's really what we're looking for. And we're looking to do that across all demographics, right? It's not just about the wealthy tourist that comes in. It's, to the folks that, haven't had a chance to experience an AV because they seem like it's not really something made for them. We want to make sure everyone feels like AVs are made for them. No matter your socioeconomic status, no matter your status as visitor or lifelong resident, no matter your status on, what you feel about electric vehicles. We want you to get in it and say, hey, you know what? These things are not only good for the environment, but they get me around and they're a great experience.
And they're also a safe experience. I think that's the key there.
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, safety underpins all of this. But we really want over time, and this is where groups that, we're both well aware of are working, is for people to really assume that these things are safe, right? Get to that point where it's not a question of, are they safe? It's, these things are safe, and that's not even in the calculus because it's just part of their natural thinking. And so organizations like PAVE, Partnership for AV Education, Automated Vehicle Safety Consortium, they're really helping us get there. But primarily, right, this falls on us. We got to get out there. We got to show our testing safe. We got to show our first deployments are safe, and that'll build up over time.
You brought up a really good key point about the individuals from all different backgrounds coming to San Francisco and experiencing your product and then going home and talking about it. Do you think when these individuals that they go to like Kansas or New York or Florida or Mississippi, that they came there and they start talking to their friends and they talk to their teachers and then eventually starts to bubble up to the legislative body and say, okay, we need this technology here. I was able to go from this point to this point at a very affordable fare. Imagine if I had that in my hometown or my elderly mother, or I need to get to a doctor's appointment. Do you think that will help kind of usher in that technology and possibly lead to a national framework to allow crews to scale over time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really do think, what we're trying to do here starts in San Francisco, but it really is something that we want to bring nationwide. And that's for a couple of reasons. The reasons you talked about, which, safety and accessibility, but ultimately what's really driving us right now and has from the start is we need to attack something like climate change, and using an all electric, base vehicle. That's been ingrained from us from day one. And to really make meaningful change, you need to get to meaningful scale. And that's really where we see a federal framework being the most helpful, allowing us to get to scale, right? We have plenty of examples where you could go state by state to change the rules, to make sure that these vehicles are deployed in a great, safe manner. But what we need is kind of federal leadership and federal investment to make sure that happens. And it's not investment in the terms of like money. We're not seeking money. This is a great thing about the United States, right? Capital flows in and out, right? As you well know, and our listeners know, lots of capital has flown into this industry. So it's not about asking for resources. It's asking about leadership. How do we set kind of a national goal or national North Star that gets us to all see the potential and realize that potential in these vehicles? And so we've seen this across the globe, right? China, Japan, Germany most recently, Israel, the UAE, they have set national goals around automation and electrification. And because they see it's important. And we just need America to recognize that. I mean, I think it does. American leadership sort of inherently gets it, but I don't think they need and understand the urgency behind moving forward with action. And that can take many forms. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but I think really that's where it's at, is federal leadership on this issue. And I think we've seen it in parts, but we hope it continues to grow.
You're right about federal leadership, and on a previous SAE podcast, we were honored to have Congresswoman McMorris Rogers, and she talked about America leading the way on innovation and self-driving. And today is the 23rd of September, and Congressman Bob Latta reintroduced the Self-Drive Act. And I want to read you a statement from Congressman Bob Latta and Congressman Greg Walden that they introduced today. There is a clear global race to AVs, and for the U.S. to win that race, Congress must act to create a national framework that provides developers certainty and a clear path to deployment. From increasing mobility for seniors and self-sufficiency for those with disabilities to providing contactless deliveries during COVID-19 pandemic, AVs have limitless potential to drastically improve the lives of Americans. We cannot allow the U.S. to be outpaced, and this effort strikes a critical balance of ensuring safe development and deployment of autonomous vehicles while keeping the U.S. at the forefront. What do you think? Is that kind of going along, trying to get that leadership going?
Absolutely. And I think Congressman Latta and Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers, they've shown great leadership on this, as have folks from the other side of the aisle, right? Congressman Pallone, Congresswoman Dingell, plenty of folks in the Senate as well, Senator Thune, Senator Peters. We have a lot of leaders who are invested in this. It's just a matter of I think, finding common ground on some of these issues. But I think the underlying point he's making there, this really is a global competition. And the way I think about it is, what underpins self-driving vehicles in terms of the algorithms, the machine learning, all of the technology, it's akin to a revolution that's similar to the internet. And whose values do we want to instill in that developing industry? Do we want American values? Do we want American workers? Do we want American companies to be the ones that are leading this, or do we want to cede it to somebody else? And for me, like I'm proud that we're partnered with General Motors, one of the great American manufacturers. And I think this is the opportunity for America to say, you know what, this is going to be an American-led revolution, and that's I think what everybody can agree on.
Everybody can agree on it, and your relationship with GM, General Motors, is a fantastic relationship. It's going to allow you to scale, but it's also going to ensure that the technology can be developed here, and that working with your partner, General Motors, that you can create the jobs here. And that's a really powerful thing, because the jobs that you're going to create are going to have a positive impact on the communities where you go to operate those vehicles. And you know this better than most individuals. Where you operate, you're going to have to create jobs.
Absolutely.
And that's not talked about. And Cruise, with your partner GM, will be an incredible job creator in communities around the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not only jobs, it's infrastructure, right? We have to build out a charging infrastructure. And that needs a lot of, means a lot of jobs, means a lot of green new jobs, as folks like to say. It involves oftentimes union jobs. And then beyond that, it's in each place, people will have to service the vehicles. We'll have to have engineers to kind of continue to make sure that the vehicles get the updates they need, both hardware and software. It's physical properties in terms of where the vehicle is going to be located. So there's, security jobs with that. There are a ton of investment goes in to scaling this. And that's one of the big challenges ahead for the industry, just to be honest, right? We're talking a lot about San Francisco. That's our home base. That's where we do most of our testing. We have smaller bases in Phoenix and Michigan. But ultimately, we want to be a national and international company. But we have to figure out how to scale that. There's a lot of challenges ahead, and that's why federal leadership is so important. It says, yes, if you build it and you invest and you get those jobs and you bring that investment to each city and community you're in, you'll be rewarded. You'll be able to move forward and continue to make America a better place.
And you'll also have a positive impact on those individuals that live in around those communities where you're operating.
Absolutely, right. Not only in terms of the investments made in the community, but also in terms of their access to what we're offering, which is, we believe, is going to be at a lower cost than a lot of the folks that are out there now. It's going to provide them access to electric vehicles. What most folks don't realize is electric vehicle sales are increasing, but they're still so small. Maybe 1% to 2% nationally of all the vehicles sold. A lot of people either can't afford them, they have no place to charge them, or aren't thinking that they need or could actually access a green vehicle. And we're hoping we can change that. And the more miles that are green miles, the better everyone is off. It increases the quality of air in those communities, particularly in those communities that are of lower socioeconomic status, where you often see much poorer air quality and much poorer health results as a result. And so we think we can get at those issues in each community we're in.
there's no doubt that you're going to have a positive impact on the environment, the community. But I think that you're autonomously driving run into my favorite topics is around education. So you're creating a better environment. You're allowing individuals who might not afford transportation to get somewhere for a very affordable cost when they need to get to, where if public transit can get there, you can get them there. But when you put a vehicle, and I've seen it with some boys and girls clubs, and you talk to them about the concept of self-driving cars, and it's operating in their community, and you're running around on an electric vehicle that's self-driving. I just think about when the child gets in that vehicle, or you bring it to a school one day for a learning day, what you're going to unlock in their imaginations. Look, I can build this. I can build this. And then you're going to start getting all these engineers, and they're going to get excited. I can build a denser battery pack. Well, if we tweak this and we did this, and just the education that's going to come along with this, and the impact the community is just going to be absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we're seeing this here in San Francisco. So we do a lot at Cruise to invest in our community. So a couple examples. We sponsor a group of young women called the Misfits, and they're part of the First Robotics program, which is a fantastic program. And so we have our engineers kind of sit down and help mentor and work with this group of young women on advanced robotic competitions. And they see our vehicle, and we walk through kind of, what we've done that might be applicable to their current challenge. And their eyes light up, and they have so many questions and so many great thoughts, right? I'm often joke that I might be the dumbest person in that room at the moment. Just the way that they get excited and the way they talk about this technology and what it means to them is really inspiring. And secondly, for those that are a little further along in their education too, we're doing some great work with a group called Human Made here in San Francisco. So this is for folks that are kind of looking to revitalize their careers in manufacturing or hardware or electronics. And this is a community that comes together and provides them education and resources to advance their learning so that they can improve the quality of their life. And Cruise is a huge sponsor of it. And we're involved. We've got a Cruise design lab there, and we provided a lot of our equipment that we no longer use, but is still very state of the art for them to practice on. And it's great. I think we've had maybe 70 to 100 folks go through the program, and they have nothing but great words to say about it. And the fantastic thing here, this is not meant to be a recruiting program for Cruise. This is just meant to help them advance their careers and learn a new skill. And it's just been fantastic, kind of the results we've seen from it. And so there's just two small examples. I mean, we do a lot, but our hope is whatever community we go into, we do programs like that.
It's powerful. And, a mutual friend of ours, Jody Kellman from Lyft, and we
love Jody.
Jody's awesome. We were talking the other day in pre-pandemic when she'll randomly go to Vegas and hop in a car to learn people. And there was this one lady, she said, wow, I can make this a mobile nail salon, and I can build my business because I can't afford the rent for a physical location. And Jody said that it just completely, the look on her face, the idea came in there, and it's just going to change this lady's life. And so what you're doing with that program is incredible, because we don't know what that experience is going to do to have that positive impact on their life. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I talk to my team here at Cruise all the time. The biggest difference we can make as an individual or a company is to change people's lives, right? And that's what we're hoping to do. And I know it sounds kind of cheesy coming from a corporate stance, but ultimately we do think this technology and the way we plan to roll it out and the way we intend to engage with the community will change people's lives for the better. And that's why I'm here. You know me, I'm a bit of a sap on these type of things. But that's what motivates me. It's why I spent so long in government. I spent, nearly 15 years in government because I love that idea of service and helping other people out. And
for the listeners that don't know Rob, it's genuine. It's not, this is heartfelt, genuine. This is not corporate speak. This is Rob of who he is.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. When do we get to a point where we've talked about the education, the positive impacts on the communities? When do we get to a point where commerce, technology, and regulatory comes together so this vision can become a reality?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're slowly starting to see this happen. I wish it would happen at a quicker pace, because I really do think some of the bigger goals that we're all trying to address, this can be a win across all these fields. Right? I don't see commerce and regulatory at odds on this issue. They shouldn't be. I look here in California, and today Governor Newsom put out an executive order that said by 2035, all sales of light duty vehicles should be electric. I'm like, that's great, but let's do it faster, right? Let's make sure that we're good to go. That transportation models like ride sharing and fleet owned vehicles are all electric sooner, and that's where I really see these goals meeting up, right? And so I see it happening, but not at the pace that I want. And so there are organizations that are really trying to bring this together. I think two trends that are helping push this along at a faster pace. One is there's a little bit of consolidation in the industry right now. We've seen that, and I think that's a trend we all saw coming. I think you saw this coming probably in 2015 when I first met you, so you've been ahead of this. And then secondly, I do think it is this sense of there's this greater sense of international competition, and that people should be rallying here around these shared goals, particularly when it comes to big issues like the climate, jobs, what we can do during the pandemic to make people safer and change our routines such that the new normal does feel like normal.
During the pandemic, you've been doing contactless delivery around San Francisco to help those who are in most need by delivering groceries. Could you talk about that, please?
Oh, I love to. This is something I'm so proud of Cruise. So at the beginning of the pandemic in March, we shut down all of our operations after talking with the mayor and the governor, and we were quickly acceded to the request to follow the rules, and we said sure. Over the course of those 5 weeks, right? You know me, I never sit still.
Yep.
Always looking for a way to serve. Started to talk to a lot of folks in San Francisco, particularly the folks that were trying to help our fellow San Franciscans out. And we had this conversation with the SF Marin Food Bank. That's the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, which is the largest food bank here in the city. And they said, our demand, unfortunately, is through the roof. And we've always relied on volunteers to deliver food and groceries to those most in need. And we just can't scale. Volunteers, they're wonderful. They're doing what they can, but they're not reliable, right? Nobody signs up to say, I'm going to deliver between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday. They've got their own challenges. And we said, you know what? I got 180 vehicles here that aren't doing anything. And we could be a really great way for you to get your service out and those in need what you're delivering. So I went back and I talked with our CEO and the other leaders at Cruise, and they were like, this is a great idea. Like, let's do it. It wasn't a hesitation. It wasn't like, what do we get out of it? It's like, hey, we can help people out. And so we started this program back in April, and we've been delivering to the most needy. I think our latest statistics that we work with SF Marin Food Bank and another partner of ours, SF New Deal, show that 85% of our deliveries are going to folks that are below the poverty line. And they're being delivered in the city, the zip codes with the 5 highest rates of COVID. And so today, I think I can say this. Haley Haley, who's our public affairs representative, who's listening in. We've made 100,000 deliveries as of today, which is fantastic, right? This is something that we're so proud to help our city out. And this is one of the things that we hope we don't have to do, right? We hope we don't have to be in this role, but the fact that we've been able to play it is just something that we feel is very proud for us, helping our community out, and kind of just really indicative of what Cruise stands for as a company.
What have some of the thank you notes have you gotten? Have you gotten some pretty heart-wrenching, like tear-jerking thank you notes?
Yeah, we've gotten thank you notes, right? We've had folks that have come down to the food bank just wanting to give us a hug and say, hey, I haven't been able to check in on my grandmother. If it wasn't for you, she wouldn't be able to get what she needs. We've had our AVTOs are safety drivers that are in the vehicle that are there to help make the delivery. They have said that the outpouring of appreciation from the folks that they meet has been fantastic. And it really is something where they feel like inspired to go to work every day. And so it's just really been a great partnership. But for us, it's more about doing the right thing than it is about getting the appreciation, right? I mean, the appreciation is great and we love it. But we really love the city and we love its people, all the people that live here. And you've been here. It's a diverse city like many cities. And so the fact that we can do this for our fellow citizens is something that, you know me, I'm almost about to cry. I'm just so proud that we're able to do that.
I almost feel like renaming your company Cruise Cares.
Yep. So our internal program on helping our communities is called Cruise Cares. And so you're ahead of the curve. I might have to go out there and trademark that now that you've got the idea. So,
or if somebody listens to it, they go to uspto.gov and all of a sudden they're one step ahead of us. And then your legal counsel like, not so fast.
Exactly.
And coming out of this, you're doing the right thing, but you're also learning a lot. Will Cruise at some point introduce a delivery service?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've always envisioned our technology being able to have multiple use cases. And I kind of hate that word. That's kind of an industry word, right? Use cases. To be more plain spoken, yes, delivery, rideshare, who knows? Once you develop a driver that can operate safely, there are many ways that can go in. We previously had a partnership with DoorDash, so we learned a lot of valuable things about the delivery process, working with a big partner, integration of services and cultures. And we're hopeful that we find other partners in the future. But right now, we've got an amazing delivery service happening with our Stand with SF program, which is the program where we're delivering to those most in need. But we certainly see a future in delivery for Cruise.
January 21st this year, you introduced the Origin for human passengers. Will that be the frame going forward where you could... I have a friend of mine that's obsessed with packaging where the food has to be packaged right. If it's plastic, the French fries get squishy and nobody likes to eat the French fries. Right. So do you take the Origin platform at some point and then build it for delivery? So if it's coming to your house with pizza or going here with a sandwich, the food's still delivered well? Is that maybe kind of where we'll see it go?
Yeah, we do expect, so the Origin is great, right? It's one of the reasons that we love the Origin is the fact that it can have this multi-factor use scenario. And so we can play with the interior, right? So the Origin, for folks who may not know, is a vehicle we produced with our partners at General Motors and Honda. It's all electric. It doesn't have a steering wheel or operator controls. And that really kind of opened up us to redesign the interior of a vehicle around, in certain cases, passengers, giving them more space, giving them the ability to move safely about the cabin. And we've done some things to make it, increasingly safer as the pandemic goes on. But it also has this flexibility where it can be used for delivery. And the interior size space makes it capable of delivering everything from small to big packages to groceries to food. We have all sorts of design variants on exactly what you're talking about, which is what is the consumer experience? It's different if you're ordering French fries or paella versus if you're ordering, pillows and a MacBook, right? And so the great thing is the Origin gives us this base vehicle that's super flexible to work around each of those design choices.
I can't wait to see when these new different, let's call it interiors of the Origin come out. And I hope you call because I want to go see them and give you my opinion because I think...
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the thing, right? I mean, January feels like 10 decades ago, right? A lot has happened in the world since then. But that was the hope is, we had this great event. It was a lot of electricity in the air for that event, pun intended, given it's an all electric vehicle. But our hope was to take it on the road and show people like, this isn't a concept car. This is going to production. Like we are literally going to start building thousands of these vehicles in the next 12 months with our partner at GM and Honda. So this is not like something you'd see at CES. This is an actual vehicle. And we were hoping to take it on the road and give people a sense of what it is, how different that experience is. And we haven't been able to do that. But that has allowed us to work on other things at the same time, such as some of these variants. And we're hopeful by this time next year, we'll have kind of all those variants ready to go. And you can come and see them and see what's different, see how we've done things in a smart way. I won't take any credit for those smart decisions. I think we have a lot of design engineers and folks in Michigan and in Japan that are helping us with that, but they look great. I mean, I'm just super proud of the work they're doing and always amazed by kind of the new ways they can figure out to make things more functional and utilitarian for our consumers.
That's wonderful. So you have, let's call them the design engineering team working on different interiors for the Origin during this pandemic, and you have yourself on the policy side with which I've called and you've called Cruise Cares. What have you learned during as a company wide during the COVID pandemic, and how is the company actively preparing for the next major catastrophe? You're in San Francisco. There's been earthquakes, and we've all witnessed the horrendous wildfires that are currently raging in California. Is there you and Dan and the executive leadership actively planning for the next pandemic now?
Unfortunately, we are. Right. I think it's just kind of the reality of the world we're in. So, I mean, what we've learned are a couple of things. One, we can make a big difference, as we've seen with our Stand With SF program. Two, we can do more. As we talk to law enforcement, as we talk to the city and the state, there are so many needs that they have where AVs could be of help, right? Both in terms of keeping people out of danger, particularly those first responders, if possible. Secondly, perhaps, helping to get folks that are not quite in immediate danger, but in relative danger, who might not have access to a vehicle or be able to drive. They might be infirm or, have low vision or something like that we could be of service there as well without putting an additional person in harm's way. And then lastly, we've done a lot of talking with the governments, both state and local, about how we can help make the electric grid perhaps more resilient, and also respond in cases where perhaps there are failures. As you might remember, there are times when the grid here in California gets overloaded and they have to do power shutoffs. I think they're called PSPS, Power Safety Power Shutoff. And so what we're working with is say an earthquake hit, which hopefully it doesn't. The grid might fall down, but here we have all electric vehicles that have this storage of electricity in it. How can we feed that back into the grid, or how can we feed it into a smaller area so that law enforcement might have basically a generator on wheels to go with it wherever it needs to? And so these are the things that we're trying to think about and work with the government to ensure that we can play a positive role in that next crisis. And then largely, and I've talked about it before, for that kind of slow but steady pace of climate change, we ultimately believe getting our service out there at scale can make a huge change to the emissions factors that the transportation industry already puts out there.
When I look at electric vehicles, and I think you're definitely on the right track here, I'm always thinking about, because I remember when I was the co-chair of the Autonomous Vehicle Task Force in the city of Beverly Hills, is that we ran this scenario: if every single resident of the city plugged in an electric vehicle at the same time on a high watt charger, what would happen? If they plugged in two and ran all these scenarios, and it opened up this really long conversation with SoCal Edison about the backhaul of how do you get enough energy for this. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at Cruise to build out your all electric fleet, are you looking into the backhaul capacity?
So we are, and we're doing some really interesting things. So about a month ago, we announced that since the end of last year, all of our source for our energy is 100% renewable. So we're getting most, if not all of our energy from solar power plants. And I shouldn't call them plants. They're solar powered, but it's really interesting where it's coming from. So we're getting a lot of it from the Central Valley and from Southern California, right outside of Los Angeles. And where we're getting it from is mostly a bunch of schools out there that have, put up solar panels and are collecting energy all day long, and we're buying it from there. I think our estimate was so far this year we've gotten about $1 million worth of energy from those solar panels. So we are looking at the issue of backhaul, where are we sourcing our energy, how much do we need? So this is a really interesting challenge for us. So right now in the city of San Francisco, we own all of our chargers. And what that means is about 50% of all of the DC fast chargers in the city of San Francisco are Cruise owned.
Wow.
And so, we are really invested in electric infrastructure and how it's sourced. It's one of our bigger challenges as we think about how to scale and where to scale, right? I think about Florida as an example. Miami, be a wonderful city to bring crews to. But how does electrification work in Miami? You've got different hazards down there. You got flooding, you have heavy rain. What does that look like with Florida Power? And these are some of the things that we work on in advance. So we're working on them right now, even though we might be there for a few years. But it's a really interesting challenge. And it's one, again, where I think federal leadership can really help, right? If we make electrification a priority and infrastructure a priority, I think everybody benefits from it. And then secondly, another thing that we're trying to get across to legislators, and now I'm putting on my policy hat, is look, right now, EV charging infrastructure and credits and incentives, they all go to personal use. Why don't we think a little bit more expansively, right? We're about to do something where we can make electric vehicles available to everybody without ownership. Some of that incentive and some of that support could be used to ensure that what we're trying to do is built out in a great way, in a resilient way, and in an accessible way for everybody, so that when we're serving all those people who don't have access to an EV, which are generally not the people that can go out and buy a Tesla or a Taycan, right? That their needs are met, and so we're working on those issues with some of the legislatures as well.
You said Miami, and I would love to welcome you to Miami. Miami is a.
I know you would.
Oh yes, it's a great vibrant city. And you mentioned the solar. FPL, Florida Power and Light, is building solar farms. That's one of the coolest things I've seen. I've got to go up in the tower, and then I got to go down and see the whole and see. So these things are cool. They go as far. I'll send you a photo offline after this. They go as far as the eye can see. It's the coolest thing. And now you're seeing larger multinational corporations, mostly in the big box retailer, putting solar down in Miami on their roofs. And so there's this really big movement in South Florida towards solar, and it's doing really well. And then because the heat gets hot and you cover the parking lot, well, you put solar there. And so you have plenty of available solar to come down here. When I look at EVs, and now I'm going to put you put your policy hat on, I'm going to put my random geek hat on. It has I look at like the cobalt and the lithium in the supply chains, volatile governments, volatile supply chains. How are you going to secure enough precious metals to ensure that you can scale?
No, it's a really great question. I know that's been one on the forefront of a lot of people's minds lately. So for us, right, there's a lot going on in this space, a lot of innovation. But we're being very deliberate about how we manufacture. And what I mean about that is our partner General Motors, who builds most of our vehicles or all of our vehicles, they have a new battery platform. It's called the Ultium battery. And this is what will power the Cruise Origin. It's being manufactured right here in the United States at their Hamtramck facility, which is great because it's all American labor. And what's really great about the Ultium battery is it uses 70% less cobalt than batteries today. So that's one of the things I talk about when innovation comes along. And they've also, announced a partnership here in North America with Honda to continue to invest in battery technology. They're working with LG Chem on advancements. So I think we're working with our partners at General Motors on all of these issues, but really the Ultium is the first step. 70% less cobalt means even if you don't find more cobalt, you can go longer for further with that, what you have now. But this is an area where we have to continue to innovate. And this is an area where I love, again, to see the U.S. kind of incentivize and show leadership as to how we're going to be more resilient with our supply chains. Right, there's a lot of tensions going on with China right now, and other folks that are in competition for these metals. And so, federal leadership, I think, is something that we could all use on this issue.
You're spot on, correct? Because not having to deal with the uncertainty of the regimes in the Congo is a plus, because history has told us, and there's many case studies and things that you can look back that it's an extremely volatile environment, and moving away from cobalt is great. And now that you got the supply chain figured out, you have the charging figured out, you have the vehicle with the origin figured out. And now the next piece of the pie is scale.
Yes.
When you look to scale Cruise, is it a city by city approach, a state by state approach, or you're going to kind of take more of a regional approach to scaling?
We look at it as a city by city approach. We think our biggest benefits as an organization and what our services offer are seen in cities to begin with. That's not to say we won't get to other areas, but when we think about our initial path to scale, it is through urban environments. We also think the technology, right? This is why we test in San Francisco. It's infinitely harder to test in San Francisco than some of the other places that our competitors are testing, particularly in, say, Glendale, Arizona. And so what we see with that is one, it offers us a pathway to scale. When you solve the hardest problems first, scaling becomes a little bit easier. And it's also where we think the need is most dire, right? Both in terms of how do we serve the most people? How do we ensure that the promises that we see in terms of the electrification and increasing access occur? It's you go where the people are, right? And then we'll move out from there. And so, really San Francisco is our first test case for that. And then we have an idea of where we want to go next. I know you'll ask, but I can't share that with you. But I think it starts in cities. And really for us, we'll take the same approach we did to San Francisco, which is we're not going to launch at cities. I'm not going to show up to West Palm Beach, Florida, and say, hey, by the way, I put 100 cars out yesterday. It's just not the way we are. So you and others will know Cruise is coming. We'll work with the community. I think we plan to make sure that what we do is with communities at all time, and that includes law enforcement and regulators. It includes community groups. It includes those who are most disadvantaged in those communities. And that's really what we're working through here at Cruise in San Francisco. And I think it's going to be an ideal model for us as we go from city to city.
And for our listeners who might not know before Rob's time at Cruise and going back to Kyle and Matt and like the founding team, is that when I was in Beverly Hills, we were actively engaged with them, and they came and sat down multiple whiteboard sessions on how do we work with your community. And I have to, you've taken that same trend and you've continued it, because it was really impressive. It says, we want you to operate here, and they came down, they had these deep discussions of what was needed and how to do it. And I can tell you from the mayor, the city manager, and the city council, it was a breath of fresh air, because the team came in and said, we want to be your partner. We're not guaranteeing we can come here, but we want to walk you through the process of how this works and what will be needed. So it's a really positive thing. I think another positive thing that you're doing is you're teaching your vehicles how to operate gestures. So you got lots of cyclists in San Francisco that I'm teaching my daughter now ride a bike, and so we're learning all the hand signals. So I'm teaching a 6-year-old the gestures, but yet you're teaching a car these gestures. How are you going about teaching the car these hand gestures? Left turn, right turn, some braking. How are you doing that?
Yeah, no, it's great stuff what we're doing there. We recently put out a blog post on this, so I suggest everyone go to medium.getcruise.com and look at a blog post on how we read body language of people in the street. But it's a combination of taking the real world data we see out there. We're out on the roads. I think we did about 800,000 miles last year in California alone. Hopefully on pace to do about similar this year. So we see a lot of things on the street, and we take that data and we refine it, and we look for hand gestures. But as you know, you're not going to see everything out in the wild, right? It's sort of like bird watching. You might see a couple of things that you really like, but you're not going to see everything. So one of the other things that we're doing is we're doing motion capture of cruisers. So we took cruisers of all different body types and put them in a motion capture suit, and we had them do thousands of hand gestures, right? And we made them do it, whether it's in the hand gestures that someone on a bicycle might make, hand gestures that police might make, or even just how regular citizens, and we studied film and studied our video catalog of what do regular citizens do when, say, there's an accident, right? And they're just trying to wave people around and be a good citizen. And so we have thousands of these images, and we continue to refine and run them through our machine learning program. And we've seen some great advancements on there. And so it's a really fun thing. I never thought when I got into this field that I'd be going down and seeing folks in green bodysuits and little, lights all over them, mimicking hand gestures. And when I first got down there, let's just say maybe one of them gave me a hand gesture that perhaps we shouldn't teach the vehicle to learn, but in jest. But it's great because it really does help the vehicle learn. And we see this, and we're seeing it on the streets every day as our vehicles get smarter and smarter in recognizing them.
Did you work with law enforcement and first responders on certain signals that we might not know that they use to communicate so your vehicles are aware of if an officer does this or, an individual working with an ambulance does this, it means this?
A little bit. A lot of what we've done with law enforcement, which they've been great partners, and we meet with them consistently. It's everything from the hand gestures, but they want to make sure that we know the basic ones first, right? Before they get into kind of, advanced hand gestures 202. But they also, helped us identify what are the types of clothing, what colors, what should our vehicle recognize in terms of not only visual representation of what a law enforcement officer is, but audio representations of their vehicles, of the different sounds their vehicles make. And so they've been great. We sat down with the SFPD and SFFD consistently and get their feedback. They come in very inquisitive, but it's an open dialogue. We go back and forth in terms of everything from, like you said, hand gestures to how do they stabilize a scene? What should we be doing? What information do they need to know? We have electric vehicles. Where should they cut? We give them diagrams and instructions, who to contact. In addition, we talk about, after an incident, all right, once the scene is stabilized, all this data resides on the vehicle. What should be the process and for who gets to retrieve that information? How do we share that information? A lot of times the information that's on there, for the average person doesn't know how to interpret it, right? And so we sit down and we explain to them kind of what these mean. What does this sensor data mean? Does that really affect kind of accident investigation or crash investigation? And so we do this consistently, and they've been great partners. And this is, again, something that we hope to bring to a more national model. We have a lot of great relationships with law enforcement through some of the groups that are out there. And we're really hoping to bring that message of, come ask us. We want to talk to you. We want to know what your questions are. We want to know what your concerns are, because they are, if not the most important, one of the most important stakeholders in this, right? The role they play in safety and road safety and just safety in general with what's going on. It's critical that they feel comfortable around this technology.
Cruise cares, and Cruise is a role model. We've got some clear themes here, and I want to ask you this before we wrap up, because we've talked about the present and in the near future, but 20 years from now, when you and I are sitting at a baseball game, remember the good old days way back when, two crotchety old guys? Right. What does Cruise look like?
Well, first of all, I hope it's another World Series game that we're at with the Yankees, right?
Awesome.
That's first and foremost one of the more important things to get out there. For me, what I hope is that Cruise looks like just a staple of everyday life, right? That you don't even think twice about kind of how you're going to get around. You say, hey, I'm going to the game. I'm going to see Rob and, listen to him drone on for another 2 hours about how great, it was to have Dave Winfield paired with Roberto Kelly for that 1 year in 1990.
That's awesome.
I really do hope it just becomes that much ingrained in our everyday use. And such that, you're not even making a conscious choice about how you're getting around, that you just default to Cruise, that, all the benefits that we've talked about in terms of climate, in terms of safety, in terms of accessibility, they're all there. And it becomes more of an issue for business management schools that say, what happened here? Why was there such a kind of reluctance to accept this when we see kind of everything that's gone through. And, I think that's what I see for Cruise in the future. And I think it's going to be great. I think this really is a situation where I know, like, I'm self-interested. I work for Cruise. I'm supposed to promote Cruise, but I really do think everybody wins out of this calculation. And so, yeah, you may say you're supposed to say that about Cruise, but really it's about the industry in general. Do I think Cruise will be a leader in that? Absolutely. But I think this industry really has a chance to make big changes. And that's what I want to see ultimately in 20 years.
And everybody wins. And this year, Garrett Cole's going to pitch us to our 28th World Series title. And then we're going to bring,
without a doubt,
then we're going to bring up the kids with Debbie and Schmidt next year. And we're going to go for 29 in person. And Rob, as we look to wrap up this wonderful conversation, I'd like to leave it with this. What would you like a listener listening to this conversation to take away with them about Cruise and self-driving cars in general?
So, I hope they walk away knowing that, look, Cruise is the real deal. That we really do stand behind what we say in terms of wanting to make a big change and drive change at a large level. And that's why we're not taking half measures. It's why we're all electric. It's why we're all in on a completely new vehicle type like the Origin. That we're bold, that we want to show leadership, and that we want to work with everybody. And that's an example of what we've done here in SF during the pandemic. It's an example of kind of leadership that we've shown in the outreach to law enforcement and other communities. So I hope they walk away with that look, the interest is genuine to lead, the interest is genuine to change, and the interest is genuine to collaborate. And that's what I hope they walk away with. That, and I hope we win over some more Yankee fans.
Yes, please, to the Yankee fans listening, please, root, we're going to do good. And and as we've heard on this wonderful conversation, Cruise is ushering in the future of mobility. And Rob, thank you for this absolutely wonderful, insightful conversation with a lot of baseball mixed into it. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Grayson. I'm just honored that you asked me. And it's a lot of fun to talk to you. Anytime you want to continue the conversation on this podcast or any other, I'm there for you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rob.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care, Grayson.
Thank you for listening to SAE's Tomorrow Today podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please kindly rate it, share your feedback, we love comments, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. For more information on SAE and SAE podcasts, be sure to visit sae.org/podcast and follow SAE on social media at SAEINTL on Twitter and Instagram, and at SAE International on Facebook and LinkedIn.
SAE International makes no representations as to the accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. The information and opinions are for general information only. SAE International does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast.